So you pay for hours?
No, I
Play
don't pay.
hours?
I don't pay.
But you play it for hours?
It's good.
Mind games.
Good morning. Welcome to our special land use meeting of September the 19th, 2016. Betsy Benak will not be attending this meeting. She had some other appointments that she had to do this morning. And I am assuming that Charles Smith will be joining us.
Here he
In
is.
fact, there he is. That being said, we'll go ahead and start. I do have one announcement to make. Some people might be here for PDR-16-06ZP, Neal Communities of Southwest Florida, Tides Inn. There was a mail notice that was sent in error. The public hearing for this item, it is renoticed and re-advertised for October the 6th, 2016. It will not be heard today, so I want to make sure everyone knew that. With us this morning, we have Pastor Tom Winter from the Elwood Park Baptist Church. Pastor Tom, please join us. Everyone stand, please, for the invocation and Pledge of Allegiance.
Holy God, your word declares that the earth is the Lord's, and the fullness thereof, the world and they that dwell therein. Bottom line, Lord, we are yours, and this speck of dust in the universe called earth is also yours. And Father, I pray that this morning, because we know that your ground can only be used one way at a time, Lord, I pray that the discussions this morning, suggestions, ideas, proposals, and final decisions, Lord, be in accordance with your will for your land. And I pray this, Lord, in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag
Of the United States of America
And to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Are there any changes, Nicole or Sarah, to the agenda this morning?
Good morning, Madam Chair. We have no official changes. However, at the appropriate time, Lisa Barrett will enter one item into the record. It's review agency comments.
No changes, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Also, before we get started, let's remember to make sure that all cell phones are silent, including up here on the dais, please. All right, we'll go ahead and move forward. We'll start with citizen comments for future agenda items. I don't have any cards this morning, so if there's anyone that would like to come forward and speak on future agenda items, you would have 3 minutes, and we keep this open if we have citizens to speak for up to 30 minutes. Anyone from the public like to come forward? All right, not seeing anyone, we'll close future agenda citizen comments. Are there any commissioners, we don't have anything to be pulled this morning, correct? All right. I'm going to go ahead at this time and find out if there's any citizens in the audience that would like to come forward and speak on the agenda before us today. All right. Not seeing anyone, we'll close that. We don't have a consent agenda, so we'll just go right to it. First item, let's see. Number 3, LDCT-16-01, Ordinance 1602. Yes, ma'am.
Good morning, Kathleen Thompson for staff. This is on presentations upon request. You have seen this once before, and this is the second reading, and this is the actual adoption hearing. And I'll be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Any questions from the audience?
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Just Kathleen, do you mind explaining, just so the public, this is the historical one, right? Yeah.
Yes.
With the tax exempt, just explain it so the public would know that are watching that don't have this in front of them.
I believe the next item is the tax
Oh, okay,
exemption.
all right, so you'll do the next one then.
Am I out of order on this?
No, you're right,
okay.
probably.
This is the Historic Preservation LDC amendment that fixes some errors. Yeah.
You'll do the next one then.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right, we'll go ahead. Is there anyone from the public that would like to come forward on this item? Not seeing anyone. We'll close public comment. What is the pleasure of the board? Or, yeah, we can do that today.
To approve. Second.
We have a motion by Commissioner DeSalbatino, second by Commissioner Whitmore. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. It is approved unanimously. Wonderful. Okay, next one.
Next item, again, Kathleen Thompson for staff. This has been in the works for quite a while. The Historic Preservation Board is quite excited to see this come forward. This is the tax exemption program for historic properties. And what it does is on residential properties, business properties, on improvements, if it is designated historic, they can get that value of the improvement tax increment waived or not paid for for 10 years. If it's a nonprofit, they can get the entire value of the property, the 100% value of the property, waived for 10 years. So there's two different programs. One, it's 10 years just on the improvement. The other one is 10 years on the overall assessed value of the property. So this is a great tool in our toolbox to encourage historic preservation.
It's wonderful,
Thank you.
wonderful.
Lots of help from the Historic Preservation Board, and of course Kathy Slusher from the clerk's office.
Kathy, you do an awesome job. Anyone from the public like to speak on this item? Please come forward. All right, not seeing anyone, we'll close public comment. What is the pleasure of the board?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Chappie, second by Commissioner DeSalbatino. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, it is approved. Robin, I'm sorry, I didn't see you on the
That's,
board.
yeah, I just wanted to thank you and Kathy and all your team for all the
Thank
great
you.
work you've been doing. And, you know, you just took the baton and ran with it, so I really, really thank you.
Well, thank you so much.
I have a question.
Sure.
Explain the difference, because I was reading it last night, but explain it for the public. It's the first one is if you do improvements, you get tax exempt on those improvements.
On the
but
value
not
of
on
the
the whole
improvements.
value. Yeah,
Correct.
will you explain that just so the public knows?
Unless, if you are a nonprofit or a government entity, you can take the value of the improvement plus the value of the property, the 100% of the property, you can get the exemption on. If you're not a nonprofit, you're a homeowner or a business owner, you only get the benefit of that value of the improvement that you don't pay taxes on for 10 years.
Okay.
So I'm not sure if that clarified it or
Well, the
not.
property appraiser, when you do the improvements, the property appraiser usually adjusts it up then if you've improved it. And this
Right,
way,
correct.
you won't get taxed on that.
Correct. After 10 years, then you'll
Right.
pay the normal taxes.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. Kathy, one last thing. I know that there's a hearing coming up in Tallahassee, and I believe is
Oh.
it the 17th?
Yeah, 16th, 17th, 18th, I believe.
I'm really trying to get my calendar so I can be there. So I might have to show up. I think the meeting's on Tuesday morning, correct? I'm doing everything I can to get there. I want to be there to help with that. Thanks for all that you guys do.
What is the meeting? I don't know what you're talking
When
about.
is it?
Is on the Myakka City Historical Schoolhouse, a grant that has been applied for
We
by the
applied
county.
for a grant for the Myakka Schoolhouse to finish the restorations of that building, particularly the interior, that they've been having problems for about 20 years raising the money for. And this is a matching grant, so the state will pay half of the cost. The hearing is in October in Tallahassee, so that's what Commissioner Baugh is talking about going to. I will be there, and I believe Mr. Barnott is going, or someone from his staff, but it would be beneficial for Commissioner Baugh or someone from this group to be
And
there
as,
as well.
yeah, as I recall, this did come before this board for approval.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you.
And I know Commissioner Whitmore knows that, because I know she's been there, so,
And for the record, I'm Kathy Slusser.
thanks, girls.
Thank you.
All right, moving on down to item number 5. This is still legislative, PA-16-01, Ordinance 1607, Urban Corridors Comprehensive Plan Amendment. Lisa, John?
Thank you, Madam Chair. John Osborne, the planning
Welcome.
official for Manatee County. It's an exciting day for us as planning staff. This is something that we've been looking forward to for a long time, and I think this board and Many boards before you have talked about this as something that we'd like to bring forward at some point, and this is an amendment to our comprehensive plan to allow the potential, or improve the potential for redevelopment and infill development in the southwestern part of Manatee County along our major corridors, something that we've, again, have been talking about for a long time. Just to give you a little background information, if you ever spend any time in the planning department at our zoning counter or in a pre-application meeting, a lot of times we'll get applications or applicants come in for potential projects along our corridors. And sometimes with these original developments that were built back in the 1950s and 1960s, it's really difficult to apply our sort of 1980s land development regulations on some of these areas that were built in the 1950s and 1960s. It doesn't always work out real well. It becomes very much a difficult process for the potential development and redevelopment, and sometimes just for a business to even expand. So some of the changes we're bringing forward before you will address a lot of those things, but they'll also give the potential to do something maybe a little bit bigger, a little bit different than we've seen before along our major corridors. And with me is Lisa Barrett, the staff person who's been working on this for quite a while, and I want to congratulate Lisa on a great job of bringing this forward. And Pat Tajewski is also here as our consultant, and she has a little bit more information for you. And just as a last comment, I just want to enter into the record the comments from the agency that we received from the state of Florida and the departments therein for schools, Department of Education, and some other agencies. They're clarified in the staff report, but those are the official comments for the record. And I'll turn it over to Lisa and Pat.
Good morning.
Good morning. If we could open both items, number 5 and number 6, and just take a separate motion at the end. The slide presentation covers both items.
Nicole, would you do that, please?
Good morning. My name is Pat
Read in item
Tajewski.
6.
Yep. Item number 6 is PA 1603, Ordinance 1623, and it's comprehensive plan amendments, as Lisa or Pat will describe.
Okay, now you got that.
Good morning. My name is Pat Tajewski. I'm a senior planner with Little John, and I have a PowerPoint that we're going to go through. Perfect. We have seen this several times. At this point, we're at the adoption hearing, so I'm just going to give you a brief recap of what we have been talking about, and then we're going to talk about some specific changes that we have made since the transmittal hearing. A little bit of background, why we're doing this. Basically, it's to implement that vision along the urban corridors. As Lisa mentioned, we have 2 items before us today, and one has to do with the urban corridors, intensification, densities, height, and all that. But the other item has nothing to do with the urban corridors. It's just cleanup of the comprehensive plan. So I'm going to talk about both. Just to point out that since the last meeting, we have taken the 2 segments that the board asked us to eliminate. But the 5 corridors that we're talking about include Manatee Avenue West, Cortez, 53rd Avenue West, 14th Street West, 15th Street East, and 1st Street. So first, I'm going to talk about the plan amendments related to the urban corridors. So the idea was to, like John said, to facilitate infill and redevelopment. So the idea is...
Just for clarification, that is agenda item number 5, so everybody listening.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to find out.
So the idea is to allow and encourage mixed-use development. We want to allow higher densities and intensities, which is necessary if you want to do mixed use. We're allowing building height that will be consistent with previous studies that the county has gone through. And we're eliminating certain obstacles that John was talking about. If somebody meets the standards, there's no need to make them go through a lot of steps. Now, all these new densities and intensities height, they will be allowable only if they meet certain design standards. So we're not just doing free-for-all type of thing. We want to make sure that they meet certain urban form standards. We didn't want to go and rezone all those properties along the corridors because that would have been really, really difficult and complicated. So what we're doing is we're creating standards that would apply to those properties along those corridors and have these land use categories that are listed on the slide: retail, office, residential, mixed use, residential 6 through 16, industrial light, and industrial heavy. We also, in addition to increasing some of the densities and intensities and height, we created a bonus system. The idea is that if somebody comes in and, I got stuck for some reason. Okay, and if they are offering certain features that the county wants in that area, for example, mixed use, or affordable housing, workforce housing, public space and amenities, a piece of the property that becomes public property, or parking garages, then we're going to allow them to go a little bit more in terms of density, intensity, and height. And one of the conditions for those bonuses and incentives is that they cannot be within 100 feet of residential property. So that's a way of protecting that. Now, let's talk about the county-wide amendments. These are the amendments that have nothing to do with the urban corridors. They're just intended to do cleanup. If you recall, we did a cleanup of the land development code before, and at that point, we didn't go into the comprehensive plan. So this is our chance to do that. So it's very simple. We have a list of the changes that we're proposing. We moved sections around, some sections from one element to another, or from the comprehensive plan to the land development code, reconciled the definitions between the plan and the land development code. There were some sections in the comp plan that hadn't been used for a long, long time, and we decided at this time that it would make sense to delete them. You had a specific element that was very particular to Manatee County. Not many other communities have something like this. It's called the land use operative provisions. What we did, anything that was good, that was worth keeping, we moved it to the future land use element mainly, and others were just deleted. And there is, and we did this for several of them, like the comp plan still said established 2 transportation concurrency exception areas. Well, they had been established already. So we had to change the language, and we are saying if deemed necessary, expand them in the future. Now, in terms of the county-wide amendments, as you know, the state requires that we do an analysis. How are these additional densities, intensities, and height, how is that going to impact the provision of public services and facilities? So we went through all that analysis, and yes, it's going to have some increase in traffic, some increase in population and all that. And the idea is that the state agencies wanted to review this to make sure that there was not going to be a regional impact, that it was going to be within the levels that the county could handle. And based on that, we received some comments from the state. And based on the comments that we received at the transmittal hearing from the board and in the state agencies, we are making some changes, and I'm going to go through those right now. So the first change, I mentioned this one before, it was eliminating those segments that were west of 75 Street. We eliminated the one from Manatee Avenue and Cortez. So we fixed the definition to specify from where to where for each segment. Then the Florida Department of Transportation gave us comments, and this one there was that I was kind of afraid of, what are they going to say? Well, they came back with a compliment. They said that they were commending the county for taking the lead on making this area more sustainable. So when we read that, it was like, oh, great, that's, FDOT is, on board with all this. And they had 2 comments that we had no problem with, making those changes. One has to do with if we ever expand the transportation concurrency exception area, they want us to coordinate with them, and that's fine. We would do that anyway, but we put it in. And the other one was that if we, as we review development along these urban corridors, they want us to coordinate with them. Same thing. We were going to do that anyway. The Florida Department of Education had some comments, and they had to do with some sections that we were moving around. We were not introducing anything new, but when we tried to move them, it brought something up to the open. It was that we have some policies in the comp plan that are not consistent with the interlocal agreement between the county and the school board. So it's like, oh, all right, we have to fix those. We could not fix them within this process, but staff is working to make those changes in the future. So in the meantime, we're just going to eliminate those changes. We're not moving anything. We're just going to leave it the way it was. So that was it. All the other agencies, everything was fine, no comments, no suggestions, no objections. So the process from here on, basically, we have an appeal period that we have to respect, and we're not going to do anything with the land development code until that period is over. So basically, we're going to go to the Planning Commission on October 13, and we're going to talk about the land development code. That's going to be their hearing. And then from there, we plan to come back to the board on November 3rd and November 15th with the land development code amendments. That's where we're going to get into the specifics of, the setbacks and the design and the lot layout and things of that sort. So at that point, we're going to be talking about those details. And that's all I have today. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer.
Well, Commissioner Chappie.
Yeah, thank you very much. And there's a reason I wanted to make it clear that when you were talking about agenda item number 5 and agenda item number 6, because there is a difference. And at previous hearings and meetings, I had voiced my concern with regards to 53rd Avenue West from 34th Street all the way to 75th. So, I'm not so sure I really want greater flexibility in that particular area. That area is totally developed and planned out. Long Bar, IMG, Glen Lakes, Estates at Glen Lakes, the residential area, the Benderson Shopping Center area. To me, that the main area of focus, which is included in map H, should be from 34th Street West to the east, out that way, where it really is in desperate need of all kinds of opportunities and flexibility. But to the west, I really have some heartburn over that. I'm not going to be supporting agenda item number 5, as I voiced before, but number 6, I'm fine with. I think that's a good thing. You guys have done an amazing job. I agree with everything else that you've put in here. Pretty much, it's just great stuff. We've been waiting a long time for this. I can remember the first year I was elected, we were meeting up in the old EOC area, and we had Cliff Walters. We had a whole crowd in there and talking about just these corridors, and how important it is for flexibility and the development of these corridors. It's just this one section that I have heartburn over. I do greatly appreciate the commission in compromising the areas from 75th Street out towards the island on Cortez Road and on Manatee Avenue. So with that, I thank you very much.
All right. I'm next on the board, and I just, for the public and also just to refresh our thoughts on this, affordable housing and workforce housing, I know it comes under number 5. Can you just kind of give us a little bit of an idea, because I'm sure that we've got some millennials in the ordinance or in the audience that's probably interested in this morning.
Yeah, the idea is that if a project comes in for approval and they are proposing to have 25% of affordable housing, of their units to be affordable housing, they get an increase in density and intensity, and I believe height. Let me get to that point. We're proposing, 25% they get maximum height, density, and intensity. We made a differentiation between affordable housing and workforce housing because it depends on the different income levels. So when we're talking about workforce housing, we're talking about young professionals, teachers, police, that would like to live in a walkable area, but many times these areas become too expensive for them. So we want the area to be successful. We want it to have great quality housing and be able to offer it for people who can afford that, to live in that area. So for both of the income levels, it's the same idea. If 25% of the units are within that level, then they get maximum density, intensity, and height. And the code already has standards as to, how to guarantee that those units are going to remain affordable.
I was going to ask you that.
And it also has procedures on how to prove that they are going to be at a certain rent level or price level.
Good. All right, thank you. Commissioner Whitmore?
I talked to John before the meeting, and I'm on my kick with smaller houses.
John Barnott, or
John,
John.
the John that's here.
Okay,
Yeah,
thank you.
sorry. I knew I was talking about.
Covering the commission.
It wasn't me.
John Osborne. Yeah.
Way to go out.
Yeah, he knows who I was talking about. Anyway,
He wasn't here before the meeting.
Yeah, John Barna isn't even here, is he? No. Okay. But anyway, we were talking if this included like the small housing, small houses on smaller lots, because we own a lot in the county that are very small but can't be developed in today's world. Also the granny flats, because working in senior care, I'm seeing, you would not believe how many families I am seeing that need a place for their family member to go, their parents or their grandparents, and they don't really want them to live in their house because it's dangerous. They have stairs and stuff. And just to start thinking of that, and also the millenniums, they don't, they don't want a big house. So it doesn't include in this, but we could amend it in the future. John, if you just want to make a comment that, because I'm hearing there's a elected official on the island that just went up north and is staying in a tiny house that's 400 square feet, and she videotaped it. Shoot, I mean, that's just enough for an elderly person to hold on to things if they need. They're not going to fall. If you're a family member, you don't have to worry. And also, it's for somebody that just is okay with a small house. So I think it's really kind of the future, and as you know, Sarasota's looked at it to improve something. So I just want to keep that in the back of our hat.
Yes, Commissioner, we will take a look at that. That is something actually that almost 10 years ago, the state actually changed the statutes, and basically they said that accessory dwelling units are something that should be encouraged to help out the affordable housing dilemma that we were in, 10 years ago. And we talked about that a little bit. It might have been a work session or whatever, but we had also some neighborhoods that had some concerns about that if we were to allow that. But it's something that we need to, that is a separate issue, really. But when it comes to the smaller houses, the tiny homes that you see on HGTV and things like that, that is something we definitely need to take a look at. As Commissioner Whitmore stated, our current land development regulations, just like the stuff we're talking about today, this new stuff, don't reflect the new stuff that well. And it's very difficult for people to try to do those creative type things to solve some of these issues we're facing today. We will take a look at it. We'll bring something back to you in maybe perhaps a work session type format. But it would require changes to our land development code to really do it effectively. Now, with our plan development process, people could bring anything forward to you. Big things, tall things, small things, little things. That's available for that, but it requires a process and that kind of thing. And it's not very clear what we allow, what we don't allow, what we like, what we don't like. So we need to have that conversation with you and the citizens before we actually probably bring something
And it
forward
would
to
be
you.
so much more cost effective if we did it versus having it hodgepodge when a developer did it, and then we have no control or oversight, and so I think it would be best. I got a couple more questions. I agree with John right now on 53rd from 34th to 75th. There's a lot going on. Lake Flores, it's kind of like the new urban, but again, this is just a planning for 20 or 30 years, kind of like in the future. So I don't see that happening. I don't have a problem with it being in there, but I don't see it's happening. And because you're right, it's all going to be fairly new, so who's going to want to change anything? But it's something that could happen 50 years from now, that we don't change. So for the planning part, I don't have a problem with it. But realistically, what John said, it probably won't happen for a while, especially in that area. Because we got the school, nothing's going to happen with that school, and et cetera. The comp plan changes, you went over them fast in that slide. There's a slide, if you could go back to that. I saw, yeah. But I wanted you to explain it better. Was this one, is there one after it? What's after it?
The impact analysis.
No, it was the comp
It was
plan. If
this
you could
one,
just
yes.
go for it, because you deleted exemptions and nonconformities and minimum land use operative. Can you be more specific for the public and for us?
Sure. Okay, so moving sections, that was pretty much self-explanatory. We moved things from here to there. Definitions, when we went through the LDC, we made sure that the LDC's definitions matched the comp plans. But there were some definitions in the comp plan that were not correct. Either they were not consistent with the state statutes or not consistent with current practice. So at this time, we went in and changed some of those definitions to make sure they were correct.
Can you give an example? That's what I'm asking for, so we kind of, does anybody have off the top of their head?
If I can remember any, do you remember any?
Here comes
There's Lisa.
Lisa, she'll.
For example, I think there was a definition of compatibility that the state now has a definition, so we wanted to make that one consistent with the, let's see, there is, for example, a definition of abandoned dump site. That's not mentioned anywhere in the comp plan, so why have that one? Amnesty Days, same thing. We changed the name. For example, there was something called professional personal service office uses, and we just changed it to office personal services. Minor things like that.
Okay.
We included new definitions for infill development. Now that we're talking about infill in the urban corridors, we're including a definition of mobile home and a definition of strip commercial. Some that we had to change to match the statutes: airport hazard, compatible, low-income household, moderate income household, residential treatment facility. So it was a cleanup of, different types of definitions.
And then the next one, to minimize the land use operative provisions.
Let me go back to the deleted special exception and nonconformity sections. Typically, the nonconformity sections, for example, that is something that you address in the land development code. If something is nonconforming with the zoning district, that's where you define it, that's where you deal with it. So we already have that in the land development code. And whatever provisions that we found in the comp plan that would have been a good idea to include in the code, that's what we did. So after doing that, that whole section in the comp plan was not necessary. Special exception, same thing. Typically, when you have a comprehensive plan, there's no such a thing as a special exception to the comprehensive plan. You meet the plan.
That's right.
So that's something that was irrelevant, obsolete, so we took that out. The land use operative provisions, there were a lot of regulation-type provisions in the land use operative provisions. That's where some of the commercial locational criteria information was included. Whatever was worth saving, we moved to the future land use element, because the future land use element is really the element that has to do with development in terms of, the physical aspects of development. And some things were moved to the land development code. And anything that was left there that was not necessary, we took out. And the last one, it was the transportation concurrency exception areas. And let me move down because I have the exact language here of what we did. So objective 5.0.4 used to say establish transportation concurrency exception areas within the urban area, which promote economic revitalization and community redevelopment goals. So we changed that language to say expand the transportation concurrency exception areas in the urban service area. It's not just the urban area. So it was just bringing it up to today's standards.
And my last comment is this was the ULI, this is all the birth of the ULI study. This started here, but we always made a commitment to other district commissioners that in the future we would be moving to other areas of the county, but we wanted to start in these areas first, correct? And so we will be looking at other parts of the county where we may take these type of things and just start moving throughout the county, because I know Michael had concerns in North County and Charles, and there may be something to look at out east also. But we decided to do this because of the Southwest TIF and everything, and this is kind of where the Urban Land Institute wanted to start, or suggested that we start, and it made sense, correct?
That's correct, Commissioner. The Urban Land Institute panel that came here and reviewed our How Will We Grow report, they gave us some priorities and some suggestions of where to start. And the Southwest area was that area that was identified as that. We will be moving on to other areas. We have some other changes that will be coming forward, perhaps not later this year, but next year, that will address some other areas. For example, Parrish has always talked about some changes to their North Central Overlay District. There's other things that people have always talked about wanting. So there may be some things that you see in the future that gets to Board of County Commissioners. There's certain things that people on their own could apply for, different civic associations and things like that. But there's also some things that are in the best interest of the county for us to bring forward in other areas of the county, north of the river, and some other areas that will help out some of the same issues we're facing along our corridors as well.
Thank you.
Commissioner Bussell.
I think this urban corridors comprehensive plan amendment is very important, and I am going to support it, in spite of the fact that I still do not agree with excluding the segments of Manatee Avenue and Cortez Road to the west of 75th Street. I don't think that's a good move. I believe that we will have to come back or you will have to come back and revisit that, because there will be a need to have some development, selective type development, but I really believe that it's a mistake to exclude it at this point.
Commissioner Smith?
Thank you, Madam Chair. would like for Commissioner Chapman to elaborate a little more, because I know you brought that issue up at the last time we discussed those avenues, and could you please explain more in dialogue? This area, what you're talking about, also includes the mall, correct?
Correct.
Has anyone, I've been getting emails, people in that area and stuff, questioning the mall, what do we have in the future plan, and how we doing our incentives and everything to encourage that property, since it's such a large parcel of land. Has anyone reached out to the property owners and sat down with them concerning this plan?
Yes, sir. We've reached out to the property owners, they've reached out to us over the years. And the mall is a little unique. It's made up of several parcels with various owners. There is the core mall area where you walk shop to shop, but Sears is their own parcel, JCPenney's is their own parcel. I can't remember the other two stores, one's that's now closed and there's the other for a big furniture store. They're their own parcels. So you think of a modern shopping center like we see down maybe off University, it's one parcel with one owner, one control. The Soda Square Mall is multiple owners, multiple control, and it's difficult to get them all together on the same page. We stand ready to help them if they ever decide to do something with that project, redevelop it, but we have reached out to them before, not just as planning staff, but also from our economic development folks, and Sherry and Karen Stewart have done that as well. We've had many conversations with them in the past about opportunities and what they could do with the existing future land use categories that are on all those parcels that incorporate them all, and some opportunities of things they could change if they wanted to pursue that direction. And we've had A to Z conversations with them, and but we still haven't had them apply for anything yet.
So we've talked to them in the last year or so,
Yes.
because I was asked that question.
I can't speak for myself, but Karen Stewart, I believe, has in the past year.
Okay, yeah, because I was asked in an email dealing with that property about incentives to uplift that property as being an eyesore, and the fact if it was some good incentives on that property, you may have someone that may want to come in, some large development based on what type of incentives that you have for that entire block to come and invest or even purchase from that standpoint. If you look to our neighbors to the north and places in Hillsborough, which is larger counties, and part of Pinellas, which has a live property left, you have major investors that doing total blocks of property, revitalizing in different parts such as malls and things like that. It seems to me that if you got 3 property owners there, it makes no difference that if you got some people that know they got incentives to come and develop and purchase if need be, if they so choose to sell, or allow them to come in and buy it from them and keep their stores. I mean, you look at what the lighting owner's doing over there in Hillsborough County. I mean, he's developing a whole block. I mean, I think we need to be bold and get these individuals that own these teams and stuff that are investing in building malls and revitalize the neighborhood and reach out to them. But we got to have the incentives there in place. So I have a video, and I'm going to try to get staff to forward it to the county commissioners and also to make sure. I got a video came in last week with someone in there showing them all and different stuff like that. But, I mean, a large parcel of land like that, I mean, the county really has to kind of market that. I mean, that's in the center of the county. You got 2 new government buildings that have been erected there. I mean, great potential there from that standpoint. So I was curious about that. Also dealing with your affordable homes. You mentioned 25%, I believe.
Yes.
Is that the same 25% that we asked countywide for developers affordable homes to do 25%? Is that the same number?
Yes.
Okay, so we're gonna keep the 25% the same as we do countywide. What will be the difference of the incentive to build here in this area versus going 20 or 30 miles out east?
The difference here is the opportunity to build more density and more intensity on one side. You can go a little bit higher in terms of the number of stories. When we follow up with the land development regulations, which you'll see in the coming months, it provides opportunities for parking reductions, a lot of other things that go with more urban type development. Further out east in North County, it's still suburban. You still have some limitations of what you can do there. You see the apartment complexes that are built typically East County or North County. They're still a very suburban type footprint. It's actually, when you actually do the density calculation, it's actually still pretty low. Sometimes it's 3 dwelling units per acre on average. By the time you do the parking, the size it needs to be, the garages for the apartment buildings, the stormwater pond and open space, But this, in the urban corridors, allows a more urban footprint for an apartment building or condos or any type of mixed-use development for residential. So it puts a lot on one spot. And for government services, that is very efficient. You think of how many customers you have per linear foot, or how many taxpayers and things like that, and the efficiencies you have with walkability and transit. It's very efficient for us to serve this kind of thing versus something that's built further out.
Since developers normally come to us and they come with a plan, they come back with setback requirements, they come back with a number of homes per acres and everything, and we normally deal with those developers on a case-by-case basis. So my question is to you, if they can almost do the same thing in this urban core, which is a start, but if an individual developer can come and ask for the same thing and we vote for that to happen, where we don't have much services at, for example, I'm trying to find out what would entice them. I know, I'm looking at this here, what would entice someone to come in that area and start spending money?
This is the first step of those type of enticements, those type of incentives, to allow something different, a little more intense, a little more dense to happen. This is, from my experience on the private side, this is a huge thing. This is something also, if you look at, you mentioned Pinellas County before, if you look at their economic development plan for the county in terms of their land use and how all that works, this is one of the first things they say to do is take a look at your land use regulations. You got to allow some density, some intensity, some mixed uses, allow some things next to each other that you may not in a normal suburban world allow some things to go vertically integrated where you can live above the shops, live above the restaurants and that kind of thing, and work above those places in office. These are all the things that are sort of the 101 of how to get infill and redevelopment and provide incentives where you don't normally or already have them. So this is something that is a very common first step to do for most suburban type developments that are looking to, they're the same phase we are in terms of development cycle. They had a bunch of stuff happen in the 1950s and 1960s that was very suburban, and they need something different to happen now.
Now, on incentives that we're mentioning, this is new, correct? What we're proposing now.
It's new for Manatee County.
But the mall never had a chance to do anything with this, what we're talking about today.
This will help. The mall, with existing future land use categories that are on top of the mall today, they certainly could propose some type of redevelopment utilizing the plan development process, go before planning commission, go before the board, or make any changes to the comp plan, go for mixed use or something like that. They could propose to do those kinds of things and bring some changes. However, they only can do so much. These changes allow you to get a little more density, intensity on that existing site. Without them going through that process, we're going ahead of them, just like the other projects or lands along these corridors, going ahead and saying, hey, improving those future land use categories, so you can do something a little different, a little more intense, a little more dense as an incentive to get better infill, better redevelopment, and in some parts of these corridors, remove some of the blight that exists today.
I've asked this, we've had meetings about 6 or 7 times, and I've asked them when we have done this plan here, have we looked at any data on crime in those areas when we decided to do this urban core? Do we have any data showing crime in those areas, single family parents, child issues and things like that, code issues?
If you recall back when we were talking, when you saw the first draft of the Southwest Tax Increment Finance District Plan, we had a crime report in there for the Southwest District. There'll be some updated information you'll be seeing very soon on those trends and how they've been progressing, whether, off the top of my head, I don't remember if they're worse or better or whatever, but you will be provided some additional crime data on the entire Southwest area.
Okay, Madam Chair, that's all the questions I have for right now.
All right, Commissioner Chappie.
Those were all excellent questions and excellent points. And John and his team, you're not going to find much better people to do this, what you've done here. And it's about redirecting, I believe. It's about redirecting redevelopment and that growth in the areas, as you just said, with the infill areas. And that's what we want to happen on the major corridors. But I don't, and to elaborate a little bit more on what you said, this area from 34th Street on 53rd out west is not where we need revitalization, redevelopment. It's to the east of that area. This area out here, and that's why I'm taking the position I am. I love everything else about this. It's just that map H that I have concern with. You know, the comment was made with regards to practicality in the next 20 or 30 years. Things, things could happen, and I hear what my fellow commissioners are saying, Commissioner Bustle, and I look to him. I've looked to him for the 8 years I've been here. You know, he is a real leader, and I listen to. Believe it or not, I do listen, even though we disagree on stop signs at times. But
That's minor.
our
Running stop
problem.
signs.
He doesn't forget.
I believe our problem in District 3 is not from 75th on Manatee and Cortez to the west about redevelopment and revitalization. We have major landowners, and they're coming forward with their plans. And we're having problems with traffic. There's only so much water you can fit into a gallon jug, and that's the problem. It's about trying to figure out our transportation, our traffic flow is related to the growth that we're trying to encourage in these urban corridor areas. So the bottleneck is out there, not where I believe we need that extra growth and development that's going to be happening. With this urban corridors plan, the 1607 ordinance, the comment about 10, 20, 30 years out. But with this enactment of this ordinance, would that not open up the opportunity for the IMG property, for the Lake Flores property? Even though there are land development agreements that are here, that doesn't mean it's in concrete, as I understand it. They could still rethink, because now with this enactment on 53rd, there would be greater flexibility in density, intensity, and height. And the idea, if you're owning a piece of property, you want to maximize, and I'm not taking away from the tremendous plans that have been presented in Lake Flores, but you also want to look at some of these numbers. And with this greater flexibility, the opportunity could be there to come along and say, you know what, we might want to rethink this land development plan and come back to the commission, because we now have an opportunity for greater flexibility, greater intensity along this 53rd Street corridor, greater height. And that's what concerns me, because that can happen relatively soon. And that's why I'm taking the position with this one particular piece. I'm not trying to kill it for the rest of the community, because it is a tremendous plan that I think is definitely needed here in Manatee County. And like I said, we've been talking about it for years. Thank you.
Commissioner Whitmore.
The mall area, and you probably talked to Karen. At one point, we talked about talking to the owners of the mall, the various owners. That parking lot is so tremendous about building apartments and housing, workforce housing. And also, I've read in all the literature that we get that are malls that are kind of like what we're seeing with ours, unfortunately, allowing housing in them, apartments. And I just was wondering if Karen or anybody has approached the mall owners to just think a little bit outside the box, kind of like what Charles was saying. It is different because they actually own the ground that JCPenney's and Sears is on. And everything in the middle, almost everything in the middle is up for grabs, but they can't do anything with it because the two anchor stores are at both ends. But it's not going to be what it was when I worked at Moz Brothers, when the mall first opened. That was one of my jobs before I became a nurse. It's never going to be like that again, unfortunately. But we are in such a need for housing and apartments and just to be a little more creative. But I have seen some literature that's come out throughout the United States in our Florida County Association book. The National Counties.
NACO?
Yeah, NACO. Thank you. That we get. That they're doing that and I don't know if Karen's actually, or if anybody's actually talked to them, are they even interested? They could make money, get activity there, and provide housing that we desperately need. And then I want to make one other comment, and then if you could respond, John, just so we kind of know. I understand what John Chappie is saying 100%. I'm trying to look at it in a planning mode of future down the road. I don't think that would happen. Now, with Larry on the 75th Street to Palmasola Boulevard, it's literally, 200 feet apart? It's one block. but it's right along the bay. And that is our coastal high hazard. That's right on the water. And I can understand where we would want to probably prevent what we're looking at. But again, all up and down Manatee, 53rd and Cortez, that's the future for years. And I don't think we should tie anybody's hands, because look how fast things change. Everybody wanted their own house with big yards years ago, and the dog and all the kids, and then they realized they had to travel half hour to go to the grocery store, and then my kids didn't want to do that, and you know, it just all changed. So I just think that we need to be open enough. I don't have any intentions of, or have any thoughts that will happen at this time in my lifetime, but it could, and I don't want to, you know, because I've heard from people in this side of town, in District 3, that say we don't ever get anything. It used to be the new part of Manatee County, now it's the old part, it's getting run down. There's other places in the county too. But it's just that I don't want to tie the hands of the future. It's not going to happen in our lifetime. And if it does, it's going to be a pretty darn good plan, or a commission here can stop it. You know, this is a planning document, and that's why I support the changes, 75th, you know, west, but I still would like to keep 34th to 75th on 53rd.
Robin?
A question. So, if and when this passes, there could be more projects that come on board that would be administrative versus coming to the board for a hearing, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, so that's why I'm feeling what Commissioner Chappie's talking about, because some of those areas, as we know, get very passionate about the intensity as it is. So he's kind of bringing me over to that side. As far as getting in touch with different builders and developers in other areas, I'm sure your team's working on that to once we get this process streamlined, then it'll be easier for them to come in and not have to go through this public hearing process. So I see what that is. We have one of the tools in our toolbox regarding tax abatement. So would these projects be able to utilize some tax abatements as incentives for buyers to purchase in the areas to get a laddered out abatement process? A lot of communities do it like a 7-year abatement, 10-year abatement, and so forth. Not just the owner of the original developer passing it on to the new buyer. Then my last question was along 41 from County Line coming towards, just say, 63rd, that whole corridor. That's we talked like in front of the university and so forth. That we're talking about maybe a complete streets or like a, what do you call it, the road diet, where you have landscaping in the middle. How are we in that process? Okay.
In terms of that process, Commissioner, we've had some conversations with the FDOT, and we've had some one particular meeting where they just had a very conceptual plan of what they were talking about doing or considering or studying for that corridor. And it could be something where it would slow down traffic a little bit, reduce the lanes, provide some better opportunities for cyclists and pedestrians. Because in the section we're talking about is, you know, if you drive by New College, you're heading north on 41, and you come from Sarasota, we're 4-lane, divided, plants in the middle, get to Manatee County, and boom, wide open. It's like you're on the airport runway.
Yeah, I was going to say.
7-lane,
We drive
undivided
like that.
facility. And you feel like you got to speed up to get through that. And it's unfortunate because there's a lot of great things along that corridor, not just the airport on the west side, but on the east side, but the west side. Some great shops, businesses, and things like that, and you fly right by it. But it's also some issues too with the DOT is looking at with the entrance to USF, Crosley, and those kinds of things. We got to take a look at those and try to get some more some safety in mind for the students and the employees that work out of that as that campus continues to grow and evolve. So their DOT is looking at all those things and studying that, and we hope to have a date to bring that at some point before the board. I'm not sure when that is, or if we'll get to the MPO first, but we'll follow up with you on that, and I'll get you some more information. But it's in the very early stages of conversation with the DOT about that.
Right, because I know just the other day, my husband and I got off of 75 and we went to Fruitville and then came into Sarasota that way. It looks so much nicer now with all the trees in the middle, and it calms the traffic down. And I know you've been working with FDOT for a while on that, but that's been a slow process, and I know the colleges are really, looking for a way to have safer route in and out. So I'm hoping that you can step it up with FDOT a little bit if that's possible.
Push as hard as we can.
I know. So I got a yes with the developers, the tax abatement.
Here comes Sherry.
When it comes to tax abatement or any type of incentives like that, when it comes to, Sherry's here. Let me turn it over to Sherry, because Sherry is the expert on
I
tax
just want to
abatement.
speak on that,
Thank
if you
you,
don't
Sherry.
mind. Sherry Corrier, Director of Neighborhood Services. Keeping in mind, in this particular area, the Southwest Tax Increment Financing District, tax that you collect are going towards redevelopment. So providing a tax abatement is not, something that you really want to be looking at, since you're only using 50% of the increment. But other incentives, these kinds of land development issues or land development code changes, these are those incentives that, really kick those things forward. Also, under your tax abatement program, there are various levels of investment that have to be, so it's a very, very large project. Something like that could be looked at, but there are certain thresholds that actually would make a project not even be eligible for your program. So just keeping in mind that tax abatement is most likely better in other areas of your community.
So maybe we can have a discussion one-on-one with where it can be used and so forth, because we have the tool that the citizens voted in, but I don't see where it can be applied in many cases.
It can be used anywhere across the county. You're absolutely right. The thresholds, though, that are in place determine the length of time for the tax abatement and the amount. So most likely, larger projects that are in areas where there's going to be a capital of investment of, let's say, over $20 million, those are your higher levels, and there has to be job creation as well. So you're looking more at commercial areas. So you can use it anywhere. You just have to be careful. Sometimes it's not necessarily the right tool to use for certain projects.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Shank, would you like to go ahead?
Oh, yes, Madam Chair, thank you. Just a few comments. I just wanted to clarify that no density bonuses or any kind of incentives are being enacted today. These is only amendments to comprehensive plan to enable the LDC to be amended, to have those details in that. So the bonuses we're discussing concept today, they may evolve and be changed by the board when you adopt them. Secondly, there's no change to the development review processes by adopting this comprehensive plan amendment. The devil in the details, Commissioner DeSabatino, will be in the LDC as to allowing administrative changes or not. You can change that and make it public hearings. It's really up to you when you do the LDC level. This just opens up those possibilities. Instead of saying they're inconsistent with the current plan, we can't do it. I just wanted to clarify that.
Okay, well,
And-
that might help.
That's understood.
And I just want to clarify the changes to the school board policies. I mean, the county attorney's office feels, our policies are consistent with the local agreement. Basically, the state does not review for that consistency, and the Department of Education was out of their jurisdiction to be doing that. We allow schools in UF3 and the Ag Rural Future Lands Classification. It was just a scrivener's change on who determines when there's a demand for the school required. It's really a school board, so it'll just be a scrivener's correction. That's all I have. Thank you.
All right. Commissioner Smith?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Dealing with what Commissioner Whitmore mentioned is you may or may not be aware of the national president of NACO is a Leon County commissioner who has knowledge and information and was actually to Hutchinson Island telling all the commissioners in the counties that the national convention would be vendors, the large corporation that's looking to come into counties and revitalize communities, slum and blighted. And that's why it's important that we have participation as that. But the national president is right here in Florida. It was to our meeting, and it has tons of information. And basically, he was calling us not having staff to these meetings that can come and redevelop urban core. We have the largest population. The participation in Florida is not what he would like it to be. But he's a Leon County commissioner. He's traveling, worked with Congress on legislative stuff. And so much knowledge he had, and he spent the 2 days there with us from there. But the thing about dealing with the mall, my thing on the mall, once you look at the other developments that take place in Florida, and Commissioner Whitmore is correct, it's simple, easy with so much property there. For example, the Rib Festival will have their event in the parking lot this year. But they have so much prime property there, they can sell part of that parking lot for hotels, apartment, condos, and revitalize that whole area and get millions of dollars to have infrastructure put in there. But it has to be some type of plan and some type of commitment. And staff got to lead a big project like that and sit down with them like you're negotiating. That's one thing they teach you in training, you're negotiating with people who want to invest into your community. You may have to paint a picture to them. 2 hotels can actually go there, condos can go there, you can have a thriving district there. You have Starbucks there on the corner right there, right across. I mean, you have to paint a picture to them, but those large areas like that are being developed in most counties right now. So I think we just got to be more to the table from that standpoint and paint a picture to them. They can't be doing all that well, no matter if you got 3 owners or what, from that standpoint, because they constantly, I'm getting emails and things like that. I'll forward this video that people really want to see something done in that area. And I think it's a good area where you can have walking and different things like there, and transportation, bus terminals right there. As I mentioned to you, the Constitutional Office, everything there, that's like a government entity now. So the mall is very important, but there's a lot of things. Dealing with the plan, I'm kind of confused of the fact, because I know Commissioner Chappie, and I'm on that issue. How did we determine to go to 75th? When you started naming the individuals, IMG, and we already got issues there, how did we come to that conclusion?
Commissioner, when we looked at the area, we looked at the entire southwest TIF district, and what we did, like Commissioner Whitmore spoke to, we looked at this as a long-term planning document. When we make plans in the county, for example, the comp plan started in 1990, and it reflected actually a previous plan that goes all the way back to 1969 for the development of Manatee County. And the plans that we make today are long-lasting, generational plans. And that's why we did the lines where they were in this tax incentive district for this entire, along all these corridors in the area. Some of these corridors some parts of the corridors are in great shape today. But if you think back into, 20, 30 years ago, some parts of these corridors were in great shape, but they're not now. And that's why we did the lines where they were, just to encompass the entire end-to-end, point-to-point, north to south, inside that entire corridor.
And I'm, with the commissioner basically has a couple of months left, I'm having trouble with that area myself now, since he will not be running for reelection. I definitely have concerns about that. And also to his point about going east, if you look on 26th Street East, if I have that road right, I believe that's right across from where the Circle K is located. And if you continue to go there a half a mile, and I've mentioned this before I became a commissioner, there was a guy who wanted to put a 300-room hotel on that corner. Until the investors kept going down that road and started seeing, as you head towards Somerset, that they would not invest one dime in that area. Thank God Robbins is opening up, but that's the block that I'm talking about. It seems to me that those incentives with people who got property sitting there dead, that don't want to invest to it, if you got them there, people would buy those properties and start revitalizing that area. That was a 300-room hotel. And they were going, in fact, the funeral home used to be there on the corner, and that's why they asked for them to move. They bought the property to put a hotel in that corner until they kept going down the road and started seeing the conditions of that community. And it seems to me to entice development in those areas, which the Steuben and the Sheriff's Department can tell you, and you had some residents came up here telling you about the crime they had in the neighborhood. Those areas should be included. But this is a good start, but I do have concerns. I don't know about us expanding to that area, because we already got a problem with noise. In some kind of way, we have to deal with IMG with those units there on that corner. In some kind of way, over the years, we made a mistake in allowing that to take place, and they actually should have purchased that whole block. Because if you're going to continue to develop in that area, you're going to have more issues dealing with noise, whether we got a noise ordinance or not, and we have those residents complaining. So I am concerned about that with Commissioner Chappie not being on the dais after November, and I have the same concerns that he has. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Sure. Commissioner Whitmore.
Well, First of all, I keep going back to all the hard work that John's done, Pat, everybody in the group have done. These are our professionals. We sit up here and set policy. We come all from different backgrounds, but these guys live and breathe it. I'm asking my commissioner to the right, Robin, who didn't support Southwest TIF, fought us for years on it, and the tax abatement, and yet it's her best toolbox in her district. And it was because you, as professionals here, told us and explained to us what it could do for that district, and we all use it now, and it's the best. But we have to sit up here as policy setters, and the administrative versus the public hearing, we can talk about that later, but, you know, I mean, if our job is to set policy and not, you know, delay something that could be good for the community. And we're supposed to be here setting a plan and forward thinking. What we're talking about today will be 20 or 30 years down the road. Look how long ago we revisited the comp plan in '89. I think it's about time that, and we're starting to do all this stuff, but we have to look what's going on down the road. And if it wasn't for you and some of the commissioners pushing for this to move forward, we wouldn't have the Southwest TIF. And you educated us and gave us the merits of it, and it did pass. But it was hard to pass. And also the tax increment, the tax abatement. That was painful, but it got passed. And now, you know, we have it in our toolbox. We haven't used it that much, but we're at least competitive with other communities. So again, anytime we discuss stuff like this, this is, you know, this is out of our comfort zone. This is something new. And I rely on the staff, and I get educated from the staff. If I don't agree, I'll tell them, but it doesn't mean I'm not going to approve it just because of semantics, because something, because again, it's a planning document for the future. So I can live with everything that you have here, one way or the other, truthfully. I just hope that we will have some kind of vote today and move it forward, because you all have worked very hard, and I don't think that it would do you well if this died.
Commissioner Chappie?
Yeah, I agree with just about everything Commissioner Whitmore is talking about. This is a planning document, and I'm not saying it's not, and I think it's an excellent planning document. You know, it is 20, 30 years down the road, and it is about, and correct me if I'm wrong, this is about directing or redirecting redevelopment to areas that we want redevelopment and development to happen. The area that I'm talking about, from 34th Street West to 75th on 53rd Avenue, which, by the way, we didn't even have this road here. You know, I mean, it's about 2.5 miles, and we're actually 4-laning it today. You know, that area for the next 15, 20, 30, 40 years is pretty much set. And what concerns me is the possibility, and I appreciate what Sarah said, and it's absolutely correct with regards to this is just a comp plan thing. The details will come out in our land development regulations to support the comp plan changes that we're looking at today. One of the issues or concerns that I have brought up in the past over the years is that if it's in the comprehensive plan, it seems like 9 times out of every 10, the commission will say, well, it's in the comp plan, you're allowed to do it. Well, you know, it's about planning and the best project in the best location, and you have to look at all the other things and the connectivity of things and how one action here has a positive or a negative impact in another area. And my concern is this particular area, this particular corridor, and what I consider the present day situation we're in with in this area with the west part of the county of a lot of traffic, and the fact that this isn't where we need revitalization. This isn't where we need that redevelopment. This isn't where we're trying to, along the corridor, direct the higher intensity and density, at least not in my mind. The other commissioners have had difference of opinion on this, and I respect that, and I get it. As far as Cortez Road and Manatee Avenue, Absolutely, 110%. I want to support this thing because I think this is one of the most monumental changes that has been needed in our community. It's just this one section, which is a significant section. It's several miles, it's what, about 4 or 5 miles long, from 34th all the way to 75th Street, that already has land development plans, that's already planned out. IMG just acquired, I believe, some more property along the corridor. And it's my concern because it is a residential area for the most part, except that little section at 34th, the intersection of 34th and 53rd. And we already have in play right now a land development agreement, which is, in my opinion, one of the best land development agreements and development opportunities the county has seen in a long, long time, probably since Lakewood Ranch with the Lake Flores and what's coming down the road. But that's a 20-year build-out, and which goes to what Commissioner Whitmore has talked about, that 10, 20 years down the road. We've all on board with this, with the development agreement and what's been proposed. I'm just concerned, again, with that particular section and the residential area, the nice residential area that's there, and what's already in the books with regards to the proposed development of the Lake Flores area and what IMG's master plan has been and that we've all approved. And with that saying, I would just like, and I did make a mistake. I said, I believe I did say map H and it's map M, is that correct?
Map M, yes.
Map M, yeah. So, well, that's the urban corridors plan. That's the map, the map M is the map that shows the corridors, correct? I have it up here. I
It
believe.
is, I'm looking at it.
Yeah, I just want to double check. So with that, just to see where it goes, I'm just going to go ahead and make a motion to amend map M of the corridor, of the urban corridors map, to change it so that the corridor does not include 53rd Street West from 34th Street West to 75th Street West. Would that be appropriate? Is that something that we, as far as this, before I make the motion, I'm just asking Sarah if that would be something that would delay or really, it's not what all the other commissioners want, and I get that, but I think it's my responsibility to at least try and make that motion if it's not going to mess things up with Tallahassee and the
Second the
review.
motion.
Well,
From where to
before I
where?
make the motion, I just
Before
want
we
to.
move forward,
Yeah,
let's
'cause
see if we can do this
I don't,
today.
again, I want to support this, and I think this is a great opportunity for the
Where are
county.
your parameters from?
Wait, staff
Well,
is trying
yeah.
Can I
to.
just
Yeah.
make a comment?
They need
Yeah.
help.
I mentioned before that for these standards to apply, you had to be on an urban corridor, and you had to have one of those land use categories that I mentioned. If you look at 53rd, the mouse is not really working, but you don't see any red west of 34, except for right at the intersection.
There you go.
All you see is that dark yellow color, which is residential 9. So that means there isn't really a lot of properties along that area that currently, with the land use category that they have, that it would apply to them. So
Why put it in
either
there?
way, so if you're saying,
Because of the
it only applies to a few properties, let's cut it at 34, I would include that intersection though.
Yeah.
Because there are lands on the northwest and southwest that should be included. But, either way, it's not going to apply except for a handful of
Right.
properties that are shown in yellow.
I'd still like to see that motion stand if I do get a second on that motion. Is the motion clear with the clerk?
Madam,
Our attorney-
Yes, Sarah, go ahead.
yes, I was just going to clarify. So do we close the public hearing on both these items?
No.
Well, first we have to make sure we open the public hearing, hear from the public, and then close the public hearing, then vote.
Okay.
But-
That's fine.
And for the record, we'd be speaking to item number 5, ordinance 1607, first bill and amendment. If that passes, then bill in the main motion.
We haven't even gotten that far yet.
So do I need to get a second on the?
Well, I would wait. We have
On
to,
the amendment so that anybody that might want to speak would also have an opportunity to speak to the amendment
Well, I
that I
think
am going to propose or
the
that's
public
proposed?
sitting here has heard the conversation. That should
Okay.
educate them as
That's
to what's
fine.
going on. I was
I'm
just holding
fine
off
with
on.
that. Yeah,
on-
absolutely, I'm fine with that.
Elaborate your
All right,
corners.
that being said, can we go ahead then and move to public comment? So we can move forward with this hearing?
Just to
Commissioners?
Cortez.
Commissioners?
Yes, ma'am.
Asking a
Yes,
question.
ma'am. Please
Can we
go.
go ahead? Thank
Yes,
you.
yes,
All
sorry.
right, we'll go ahead at this point and open to public comment. Anyone in the public like to come forward and speak?
Wow,
You're missing a great chance out there, guys.
this is a biggie, too.
Come on, Ogden. All right, not seeing anyone, I'll close public comment. Okay.
With that, Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion that, I'd like to make a motion that we amend the Urban Corridors Plan Map M to eliminate the section of 53rd Avenue that is designated on map M from 75th Street West to 34th Street West.
And is it going to Cortez? or-
No. Cortez.
no, no.
No.
Just
Just-
anything that
just this-
touches that.
Just this section I would like to have eliminated from the corridors map, yeah.
Commissioner Chabot, that's your motion.
That's my motion, yeah.
I second
Have
the
a-
motion.
We have a motion by Commissioner Chappie, a
I'd like to
second
hear
by
staff, if
Commissioner
you don't mind.
Smith. We do have other commissioners on the board, however, before we vote. Yes, ma'am.
I was just going to mention that intersection, it has potential, and it would be an appropriate place for redevelopment right at 34 and 53rd. So if you make the motion all the way to 34, you're eliminating those two corners.
Right. The
I
commercial.
understand that, because I know what's,
point.
I know what's behind, also behind, right directly behind that shopping center on both sides, which is residential, multifamily residential to the northwest and also to the southwest. You know,
I'm next. I will not support the motion, only because of the two intersections. If there was some way we could modify that motion and get those two intersections out, I'd support you, John, 100%. But
I will modify it.
I think we need those intersections included, or not included in
So
your
what
motion.
street would that be? Up to Lee?
Yeah.
If that's all right, Madam Chair?
Yes, please.
The school, what street would that be up?
What are the two intersections, Pat, that you're
We're
referring
going to look for an aerial, so we can be more specific.
Perfect.
All right.
And I still have something else to say. You want to recess for 5 minutes? Please. All right, we're going to recess for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. John Osborne, planning official. The appropriate cross street for 34th would be 36th Street West. So the segment that Commissioner Chappie, I believe, is referring to is 53rd Avenue West from 75th east to 36th Street West would not be considered for the urban corridor. The urban corridor would be limited to the westernmost extent would be 36th Street West.
John, go over that again, please. I'm sorry.
Can you point to it,
Yeah,
or?
yeah.
There.
Here it is on the aerial before you, right there. So the segment we would remove would be 53rd Avenue from 75th Street east to 36th Street West. So the segment remaining would be 36th Street West east to its easternmost extent, which is on the map today.
That would be my motion then.
Show me on yours. I think it'd be easier to see.
Here's 34th.
Yeah,
This is 53rd.
right.
Here's the shopping center on the north side, northwest side, and the shopping center on the southwest side.
We don't all see
This is
that.
Can't see
36th
that.
Street
We
West.
don't all see that.
Can't see
Well, they
it.
can't all see it. Yeah, I don't have a pointer, so,
No, there was the other map you used before.
And then you
It's
could-
the
if you
same
could-
map, it just didn't have the colors on there. It was a little bit easier to see.
and if you could distinguish
There you
There.
go.
on the map
Okay.
to show where, if you could please, where the shopping centers are at 36th Street West to the east, and to the west of 36th Street West, and also along 36th Street West behind the shopping center, is all multifamily residential and single-family residential. And then on the southwest corner of 53rd, west of 36th Street West, is Electra Lee
School.
School, and then some more multifamily, and then some protected lands. I believe that's part of, I forget the name of that
It's all right.
slough in there, but nothing's going to ever be there. And then you get right into the IMG. And on the other side, of course, is Glen Lakes Estates.
So where are we
Estates at
talking
Glen
about? I'm
Lakes.
losing them, getting lost.
So John needs to explain it, not me.
Well, again, if you looked at the map, let me put the map on the overhead camera here. So the segment that would come off is the segment of 53rd all the way to 36th
He
Street
doesn't
West.
have it on the camera.
Not on the
There we go.
camera.
Okay, go ahead.
Segment would come off.
Do it again.
So from here over to 36th Street West, this would come off.
The whole thing?
Yeah, that chunk of it.
So from 75th,
So from 75th Street all the way to 36th Street West would be removed.
So you're basically taking out IMG,
Correct.
essentially,
And Lake Flores.
and Lake Flores.
But keep in mind, IMG does have their own plan
Yeah,
already.
It's already
Yeah.
has.
They have their own plan development project.
And they don't have the MU.
Are you going to have discussion,
Oh, yes.
please?
Commissioner Smith?
Madam Chair, I yield to Mayor Bustle.
All right. Commissioner Bustle?
Well, what this will do, first of all, is going to take my motion to approve the urban corridors away. I will not support it with this change. I really believe that this is being done with consideration and knowledge of current events that should be left until the future when a project comes forward and need to be debated and considered at that point in time rather than today. We're making a limitation on the urban corridor plan that I don't think we should make it. We ought to keep it simple, keep it straightforward, and then in the future, when development comes forward, then it will be debated on its merits and approved or disapproved on its own merits at that time, not today. So I'm not going to support the motion.
Commissioner Whitmore?
well, I tend to agree with Larry. We compromised, and some commissioners didn't want us to, but we did, from 75th Street West. Again, this is a long-range plan. This is 10 to 20 years down the road. So I tend to support what's been presented to us.
Commissioner Chappie?
Yeah, I believe that the future is now. We already have And I am thinking in the long term. I consider 20 years out long term. As stated by our staff, and as we have voted on, we already have a master plan for IMG. We already have a land development agreement for Lake Flores, 20-year build-outs. You know, this is just, again, my concern is along this corridor with the possibility, when we get into the details with the land development regulations that would be developed to represent what we've done here on our comprehensive plan with the bonuses for, you know, density, intensity, and height, that concerns me for this area. And that's pretty much all I have to say. And I appreciate the open and candid discussion that we've had so far today. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay, well, I'm next on the board. Commissioner Chappie, I'm trying to understand your thoughts on this subject, and I take them seriously. Can you please go over that again? Because I'm not sure that I understand why necessarily you would want this portion taken out when, as you said, IMG already has been done, and so is Lake Flores. So why would this be an issue as far as infill and redevelopment? Why would you be against it in this area when it could help the area? Please help me understand.
I'm not sure of, you know, whether it's a relative help. The concern with changing the comprehensive plan for this area when we've already agreed to a IMG master plan and the Lake Flores plan, and everybody was on board how great this is.
They could change it.
The opportunity with the change in the comprehensive plan and then the follow-up with the changes that we're going to be making to reflect the comp plan in our land development regulations would open the door, as Sarah had said, for opportunity to maybe reevaluate those two plans from all of this area when it's not even an area that we want development to happen in there, and that's why we created this TIF. But the TIF is a huge area. But to redirect for redevelopment and revitalization, this isn't what we really want. This is about 2.5 miles of area on both sides. It's a huge area, as we were reminded of during the public hearings for the Lake Flores projects and several years back for the IMG projects. So, you know, and that's my concern, that they would look at the numbers and, you know, we don't know who's going to continue to own these properties. I can't guess. That's in the future. You never know. But it would concern me that we would open that door for something that, you know, most of the people around here were kind of fine with. But now you're saying we can have greater density and intensity and height on this section of this corridor. It's not the rest of the stuff. And I understand it's what you said about and you might go through that one more time. There's very little property that would be affected by this. But again, my point is, we've already approved a master plan and a land development
For
agreement.
example, Lake Flores, they do not have any of the land use categories that would allow them to use these standards. So if they wanted to use these standards, number one, they would have to change the comprehensive plan. So they would have to come here.
Right.
And they would explain, yes, we're going from MUC to one of the other ones. So that's an opportunity for you to decide at that point, is it worth including them or not?
Right.
And the other properties are all residential. So there's not any mixed use from the 36 limit to the west. So
And to that point, if I may, that's why I'm saying, why even open that crack when we already have several 20-year build-out plans in effect to open the door for that greater intensity in this particular area when it's not an area that we are trying to have redevelopment and revitalization. Most of that is to the east.
Okay. I do have another question since I had the floor. So in other words, am I to understand, Pat, that IMG and Lake Flores could come back before us to get their plan changed for higher density if this is approved? Is that what I'm hearing here?
No, currently right now. they have the MUC future land use category, and they have a plan approved that is generally consistent with that. With the MUC category, there may be some things they could say, hey, we want to do some other slight increases in densities consistent with the MUC. However, the proposed changes we have with this comp plan amendment don't really get into the MUC category. They don't provide those kinds of incentives. There are other little smaller parcels further to the east. They're the ones we've been talking, closer to 36, this would have an effect on, the ROR future land use category, for example. That is one that this would be, these changes have the ROR category in mind for.
But they could come in and request a comprehensive plan amendment if they wanted.
Right, a comprehensive plan amendment.
They could.
And it would have to come before this board.
Absolutely.
They could.
Okay, that's what I needed to know. Commissioner Smith?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and Commissioner Chapman did such an excellent job explaining that in layman's term. I'm going to explain in economics and money. The bottom line is if you go forward with this here, the property becomes more valuable. Not only does it become more valuable, any business person with that much property would automatically ask for amendment and get the incentives to enhance that property. My concern is that the residents that's living there now, I don't want to create another situation. I voted for IMG on parcels of land. I voted for Lake Flores when it came here. That's what I voted for. I didn't vote to put incentives in place for opportunity for them to come through a future board, which makes business sense to do it if you include that because you can make more money, to get incentives and also to get special zoning. To the point, 2 miles to the east would revitalize the neighborhoods that are 50 to 60 years old. I did a tour of Mixon Fruit, and Mr. Mixon was behooved to the fact that he spent all this money revitalizing his tourist development facility there, history, spending money, and he has not received one incentive from the county government, and he spent almost $1 million. So those are the people who built Manatee County. But to continue to take that out when we've already reviewed the plan, I agree with Commissioner Chappie. It makes no sense to give someone an opportunity to come back and ask for amendment, which if you put those incentives there, certainly with so much property involved, it'd be, in my opinion, a bad decision from the business owners not to come back and ask for that. So I would be supporting Commissioner Chappie's motion based on that. I don't think the TIF district was designed for something that we've already voted on to entice that property to value to automatically increase. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Commissioner Whitmore?
Well, the TIF district was formulated for redevelopment. IMG could sell in 10 or 20 years. Tennis market could go down in the toilets or whatever, and then that would be sold for some type of redevelopment. When Lake Flores came before us, we saw a lot of people that we haven't seen that live in this area that were very, very supportive of, because all there is residential. You have to get in your car and go somewhere. They are waiting with bated breath for this to come, so that they can stay here. My kids don't go in West Bradenton when they go out. They go to Sarasota, or they go now downtown Bradenton. There's, and I've heard from many professionals that live in this area said there's nothing to do besides go to Publix or the beach. There's not a lot to do in that area, what we're talking about. I have friends that live in Glen Lakes, and they're fine with it. They know it's all coming, and they said probably not in their lifetime. They'll be older by the time it all gets built up. But when we had these public hearings, we heard from the public that they were ready for something like this. They're not ready for just a bunch of residential. So I'm not going to support the motion still. Again, it can always be revisited in the future. Anything can be revisited in the future. But right now, I'm going to vote for staff's recommendation.
Commissioner Bustle?
What we're hearing here is a bunch of hypotheticals and arguments that should be held at the time when a project comes forward, not now. What might or might not go on a piece of property today is going to change over time as developers and others, landowners come in and decide what they want to do. I don't think this will have much, if any, effect on IMG or Lake Flores, either one. So I really believe that the motion is ill-considered.
Commissioner Chappie?
Yeah, and Larry makes a good point, which is right in line with what you said, that most of this land doesn't have the land use to where it would apply. So my question back to you is, so why is this area even in there then, if they would still have to come back and go through the comp plan changes and go through the whole thing to do maybe higher density and intensity? Why is it even in there then what's the logic behind that?
But again, it's long-range planning. It's broad brush, long-range planning, thinking.
Can you define long range for me?
Sure, anything 20, 30 years out
Okay.
is long-range
Which
planning.
is,
It's consistent like we do with the MPO long-range transportation plan, the master plans for water for sewer. The comp plan is a long-range plan. And anything in the comp plan typically is 20, even 30 years out thinking. So that's the logic behind it. What's there today? You think of Bayshore Gardens. It was a deed-restricted community.
and I understand where you're going with that, but I'm just talking about this one part. I'm not talking about Bayshore Gardens. I'm not going to, because I agree, this is a marvelous thing for these other corridor areas. What I'm talking about is just this one section. And that's the only part I'm concerned about.
Yeah.
And again, I want to support this. I support everything but this one little thing, because I think it's a great plan.
Go to the PowerPoint.
So what's the logic of why that little piece is in, that 2.5 miles is in there? If it doesn't even apply because of the land use.
Okay, I need to go back to the PowerPoint and just to talk about those properties. Okay, so I mentioned that only those yellow areas would be,
Hold on one second, please.
Can you
Oh, it's
see
on.
yellow? He
Well,
can't
I
see
got to get it
yellow.
up on my map first.
we can start to
He's
show.
color challenged.
Can,
Yeah,
See
right.
yellow? That's yellow.
if you had
This here.
sunglasses on,
Yeah.
you would.
Can we start to show?
And look at the other one.
Lisa?
Only the yellow areas are what, Dan? Please, you can start over.
Those are the only properties that would be benefiting from these amendments. And the idea is that those are either residential 9 or above, which could have maybe higher density residential, maybe for workforce housing, maybe for affordable housing. And I know that they are already developed, most of them, but what if somebody comes in and they want to do maybe a portion of that development, tear down whatever townhouses that they have or something like that and build taller multifamily developments. So that's the idea, that we want to bring residents to the area too, and, you know, the millennials that we're talking about, not the single-family home type, but more like townhouses and above. So those properties have the potential for that. And with the shopping center right down the street at 34 and 53rd, it seems like those would support the commercial at that corner.
Right. And that kind of goes to the point, well, I've been having the conversation with her, I asked her the question.
Okay, well, hurry up.
And I appreciate that. Which goes to the point that you know, is that what we want in those areas? You know, I'm not so sure it is from the District 3 people that I hear from, which are, I'm sure, are probably the same people that Commissioner Whitmore and some of you other commissioners have been hearing from. Yeah, the people on the west side wanted redevelopment, revitalization. They need something here, a place to go, a destination. And that's all the reason and more why we approved as a commission the IMG and just recently Lake Flores, because that is going to be a destination place. It's going to be a marvelous place. And that area between Cortez and Manatee Avenue, all of that area. So you know, I support all that. It's just this section right in here, I'm disagreeing with you. Respectfully disagreeing with you, because you know I have all the respect in the world for you. And John and I have had a number of conversations over the 8 years. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Commissioner DeSabatino.
Yeah, I understand what Chappie's concerned about, because once they're included in it, even though they have their other plan in place, they could indicate that they are in this area, so they should be entitled to the changes that everyone else is, and then come back before us and say, we should just be entitled to have this designation, and if not, you know, we're gonna be going across the street. I get that. And back to what Commissioner Whitmore stated earlier about that I did not want the TIF. I did, at the time, I didn't want the TIF going past 34th at the time. The rest of it I supported. But the thing I was really against is dissolving the CRAs, because I thought that they could stay in place with the TIF overriding it. So I just wanted that on the record. Thank you.
Okay, I'm next on the board. You know, it seems to me with what all I'm hearing, it's only two small sections that would come into play. Any changes has to come here for approval. It is long-term, and we don't know. There is a lot of older areas there that would benefit, in my opinion, with redevelopment, if it should come down the road long-term. I can tell you, I would not want to see Lake Flores or IMG come before us about this. I don't think that would be right, and I don't think it would mean that there would necessarily be a lawsuit, because they have their plan, and I think as far as a lawsuit, even if we took this section out, and we've had this discussion today, I think they would still probably have grounds, if they wanted to bring it forward to us and talk about taking it across the street. So I think either way, you know, it's there. Yeah. So I'm going to not support this motion, because I'm not sure, I have not been sold as to why this one section should not be included. Because everything has to come back before us here anyway. It's only two small areas. I'm not sold on that. But Commissioner Chappie, I respect you, and I always try to move forward with anything concerning your district, because I know that, you know, we've always done that with each other, but I just don't get this, and I'm sorry. Commissioner Whitmore.
Well, you know, I know a young reporter that works at one of the newspapers that moved to Pinebrook, the apartments. There's no apartments in West Bradenton. There's not a lot for young professionals. I have a girl that I've known since the day she was born, a nursing assistant at Blake, that had to move out east because they couldn't find apartments. So I know Lake Flores is going to have apartments, and I can't believe that we wouldn't think that there would be nice townhouses for young professionals to be up on 53rd or, you know, near 34th in these two areas. So I'm not going to support the motion, but I am going to ask to call the question so we can get moving forward to see what's going on.
Second.
Okay, the question has been called, and we have a second. All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed, nay.
Nay.
Hey,
Whoa, raise your hands.
So it dies.
It dies. Okay. We're still going forward.
And 3-3 loses.
It's going to be.
That's right.
Yeah, we know that.
be a tie.
It tied lose.
Commissioner
I'm
Smith?
not voting on 5 now. That's what I said.
Do it.
I would not be supporting 5, all the great work that staff did. I must yield to the respect that District 3 has got a new commissioner that be coming in to represent District 3. So out of respect for that, and the fact that I don't see how in the world we can go 2 miles on property. Staff already said from condos on up, so it has nothing to do with affordable housing, in my opinion. My concern is the fact that Commissioner Chappie has echoed this at least since I've been here for a year with concerns of that going that far, and I thought it would be addressed at this point. I was hearing him then, when I voted on Lake Flores in IMG, it was not based on the incentives extending out there to areas that are influential, that is a plan already that's been presented, when there's other areas that could be included in the TIF district. I support everything else except for the extending out there. I'm willing to support 5 if this is not included. However, if this is included, I would not be supporting 5. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Commissioner Bussell?
Well, I'm gonna withdraw my support for the basic urban core if this is included in it. And I believe that we call for the vote, right?
No, it died.
It died. The
It was
question
three-
died.
It was 3 to 3.
3 to 3, it dies.
It dies.
So the call for the question died?
It died.
Well,
Well,
excuse me, Madam Chair, for interrupting. I just want to throw something out procedurally. If you eventually vote on the amendment, and it doesn't pass, or somehow it complicate your conundrum because you only have 6 members here. If you do decide to continue it, I'm not saying you have to, but if you did, legally, I suggest September 27, because we have a clock running on this, that we have to have the comp amendments in effect before you hold November 3rd first adoption hearing. And if I let you continue to October 6th, it won't be in effect. So I'm just letting you know procedurally, if you were inclined to continue anything today, my recommendation from a legal perspective is continue to September 27. I just want that thrown out.
Commissioner Chappie?
Yeah, could you point out on the aerial where 36th Street West is? And
look at
where
the overhead.
40, because I think that's 43rd Street West where that, no, the other map, the other one. I want to see the other one.
The aerial.
No, I want to see what you just had up there.
Oh, what I had.
With the pieces of property. There,
This one.
yeah. If you could enlarge that one. And show me on that where, where's 43rd? That's 34th. That's 34th.
He wants
And
you
then,
to make
and then
it bigger.
36th is right there, right? And then 43rd is, so between 36th and 43rd
This should be 43.
is all that area to the, a little bit to the north and to the south that
Could be,
part of that, correct?
no.
That area there.
Yes.
And again, this goes to my point. And then if I could, on the other section, that's 51st? Is that 51st that runs along the west side of that big block?
Voluntary.
Can you make it bigger or no?
Well, it's fine as far as size-wise, you know,
is
because
it?
it
I can't
includes
see.
everything.
What street is this?
There, that's better.
Well, no, that's not, because I'm not concerned with the rest of that area. I'm just concerned, the only thing I'm talking about is that section of 53rd. But this is a great plan for the rest of the stuff.
Are you questioning 51st?
No, I'm just trying to get my boundaries so we know what we're talking about.
51st is just for boundaries, is right where it says 53rd Avenue West. The street that heads due north-south is 51st.
Right where the A
Right
is.
there, yeah, right.
No,
That's 51st.
that's 51st?
40,
No,
I think
that's
that's,
51st, that's, okay, that's 51st.
okay.
Show it again. I don't want that map. I want to see the map that shows pieces of property that would be applicable if this was included in map M.
There it is.
Make it easier just to exclude those 2 areas.
Okay.
Right there.
That's 51st.
Yes.
Okay. Everything, keep that cursor on there, so I don't get lost here.
Bigger.
Where the
Let me make
51st
it bigger
is.
for a second, Lisa. Okay.
Is there,
Right.
There you go, it's there.
oh, that's perfect. Now, where's the okay, thank you. Okay, 51st, everything to the west of that is estates at Glen Lakes along 53rd, which isn't part of that. A little bit of it is. The county golf course and part of the slough. Okay, which you're not going to be able to build in there anyhow. If you go back to the other larger section, if I have my maps correctly, no, you don't have to touch anything, just put the cursor over there to show where 53rd Street West is. Has that little jog, 43rd Street, 43rd Street West, excuse me, 43rd Street West, right there. Okay? You see that? That area on the south side of 53rd, you have Electra Lee, which is to the west of the shopping center. You have the apartment building that's already there. And then you have the big area that's part of the slough, which is included in that area, which you're not going to build there either. And then you have IMG, and so again, going back to the other question, where's the logic into why this section of 53rd is part of this corridor map when there's it's extremely, it's just not going to happen there because it's protected area. So I don't even want that door opened even a crack when to me, logically, it doesn't even make sense that that section is even part of this corridor's map.
Well, I think they already answered
I'm
that
asking
question
them.
for
I'm
you.
asking
You
them.
already
I'm asking
have.
them, Madam Chair.
Long term.
I'm asking them.
Long
Madam.
term.
20 years is long term, and we've already
said.
approved 2 master plans for IMG and for Lake Flores. And that's my whole point, and I appreciate the discussion again. Thank you.
You know, Commissioners, I'm going to interrupt at this point. I cannot make a motion. I cannot second a motion, being chair, but I would love to have a motion to continue.
I
So,
want to vote against 5. That's
Been
what I
said.
want to do.
Commissioner Whitmore.
Well, that's what I was going to do because, well,
We have a
first of
motion
all,
on the
wait a
floor.
minute, I got the floor. If maybe, I'd like to continue it, but maybe we could consider, just because we got to get somewhere on this, and this is ridiculous. I mean, this was a 20 to 30-year plan, I get it. But if we even consider, and this is something we can talk about when we continue it, 51st Street East, and then leave west, whatever. And then we'll see what the board says over, because there are apartments there. And again, what if IMG goes away? What if those apartments go away and they want to do something different and be creative? So I would like to make a motion that we continue this till, what was the dates?
September 27, 2016, at 9:00 a.m. or soon thereafter may be heard in this room.
I have a point
That's
of
my
order.
motion.
I have a point of order question.
My motion.
Madam Chair, I have a point of order
Do we have a
question.
second?
Oh, it seems. You always do.
Do we have a second?
Go
though?
ahead.
My point of order question is a motion to consider, take precedence over a main motion that is on the floor, or an amended to a main.
We already have
mo-
a motion
I-
on the
I-
floor,
Can
so
can I
we have to
finish,
take
can I,
the
can
vote.
I finish?
Let's get out of this.
I know.
Go ahead, John. You're getting out of control. Keith, I'm agreeing with you.
I understand. I'm just
Okay.
trying to get the
Calm
chair.
down.
Madam Chair, I'm just trying to,
Go on, John.
There's a motion on the floor
you need,
already.
there's a motion on the
Trying to
floor. and
say.
that's all I'm
Motion,
asking.
That's what I was saying.
Let me finish.
Well, God.
So who
So what's
seconded
the
it?
answer?
I don't know what you said.
He has
You're-
it
you're
I was
all like-
on the
interrupted.
floor. John wants to know if we should go ahead and have to deal with that first before another motion is made.
No, the point is, we have 2 motions on the floor because Commissioner Whitmore made a motion
Nobody
to.
seconded.
Nobody
I
seconded
thought
yet.
we had a second.
No.
Oh, you know, I didn't second it. I'm for voting against 5. I'm not trying to get 7 amendments here
We're
to the
good to
next
go.
meeting,
Well, we don't have,
to the next meeting.
Procedurally, it's always advisable to dispose of the pending motions if you're
Thank
inclined
you.
to do so. So if it is continued, we have a clean slate as to where we're going.
Excuse me,
We
Quintana
don't know,
Acevedo
sorry.
for the clerk's office. Madam Chairman, the amendment, Commissioner Chappie, you clearly stated that you wanted it to be 36th Street West to 75th Street West, but Commissioner Smith was not on the record as seconding that amendment change. So in order to even vote on that motion, it needs to be clearly stated that he's in agreement with your change.
Thank you. Absolutely.
yeah.
I'm in agreement with his change. I second that motion.
So,
You second the amendment change?
You're right, he amended because the clarification of the street address, you're correct,
that
Madam
died.
Clerk, and I second that amended motion.
but that died, so,
All
No, I
right, we
didn't.
have a motion and a second.
I thought it died.
No, we haven't voted on it yet. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay.
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 it's
So
3-3,
it's
guys.
died, it's 3-3.
Now I'd like to
Did you
make,
get that, Madam Clerk, before we continue? All right, go ahead.
now I'd like to make the recommended motion to continue for our attorney's comments.
And just for clarification, are we continuing only on ordinance 1607, which is the urban corridor comp plan amendment, or do you want to continue on both of them?
I think in
I
all
have a-
fairness, we should continue on both
I have a
of them.
question, Madam Chair, to the attorney.
I didn't get a second yet. Who
I
seconded
can't
it?
second.
Yeah, you can. Chair can
As
second, you
chair,
just can't make a
I
motion.
second. I lost my computer. Hold on a
And
minute.
since I'm the motioner, can we please try, this staff, our staff has worked years on this. So let's try to move this forward to September, please. They have literally worked years on this.
And just record, Madam Chair, the motion is continue the public hearings on both ordinance 1607, the urban corridors council plan amendment, and ordinance 1623, countywide council plan amendments to September 27, 2016, 9 o'clock a.m. or sooner thereafter as may be heard.
I have a question to the legal attorney, Madam Chair.
Well, Commissioner Bustle's next on the board. You're after that. Commissioner Bustle?
You know, what we're trying to do here is cherry pick the certain areas on a particular corridor. You know, we could do the same thing on the other corridors. We could pick a section that we don't want something to happen on, and that's what this is all about. You've got some complaints from people that don't want something to happen, and therefore you're saying, take it off of the table. I don't agree with that. I don't agree with that philosophy. First of all, I think we should wait until the day when a proposal is made and let it be argued at that time as to whether it's good or bad. And I question, what's the purpose of continuing it? What are we going to ask staff to do different? To change it to the way John wants it? No, I'm not going to support that.
We'll have a full board. We don't have a full board today.
Right.
And we'll have new commissioners as well.
Not in
Not,
September.
not
December.
September 27th.
No.
No, December wasn't it
Yeah,
December?
yeah, November or something. but
No, I
it's
said September 27.
Oh, I thought you said
No, no, no,
December.
No, I think we should finish
Oh, wow,
I
that
would
changes.
Fair,
recommend
I don't
that.
think it's fair to argue whether or not you should do something specific at that point on the 53rd, because, you know, we don't have people prepared to argue one way or the other. You need to wait until the day when it comes before us and then argue it.
Let's just vote.
Commissioner
People
Smith?
come forward then.
Madam County Attorney, in dealing with issue number 5, if there's a vote recommendation not to support 5 and it's a tie, what happens?
It dies.
Not to
All-
continue.
Oh, then,
Vote
if the
up
motion
or
for
down?
continuance doesn't pass, then you
Have to-
vote on the main motion on each ordinance.
Okay, so I'm not trying to allow the dice to get 4 votes. My thing is to vote against 5 and vote against the continuance. Thank you, Madam Chair.
And they've died already.
Yeah. Commissioner DeSabatino.
Well, I kind of disagree with what Commissioner Bustle just said, because just to go back, if we already give that whole area entitlements and then they come back before us, then you can't unring that bell. Maybe just to simplify things, I think the 2 areas that we're talking about that we want excluded because they have plans already in place are the IMG property in Lake Flores. So we can just exclude those 2 locations, and the rest stands. I don't know.
Madam Chair, the whole regulatory scheme is based on the urban corridors and abutting. I would have to hear from our consultant on that. We might be creating legal problems. You can't single out specific developments. We got to
I
keep the
said that
regulatory
earlier.
scheme uniform for everyone at this point.
That's why I'm not going to,
And
thank
the
you for
other part
clarifying
is just
that.
to cut it off at 36. Anything 36th Street and east is
Let's
fine.
vote.
Yeah.
Let's vote.
No, we still have
Is there
people
anybody on the board? I was one.
John, did you want to add something?
Yes, Madam Chair, and staff's opinion is obviously, we support the plan that is in front of you. However, I believe Commissioner DeSabatino alluded to this. It's easier to add things later on than to put something on there today
Take it off.
and remove it. And staff would certainly support having 53rd, and all due respect to Commissioner Bustle, and I appreciate the fight you're putting up, 53rd Avenue taken off to 34th. I'm sorry, 36th, thank you, Commissioner. We don't have an issue with that. If something later on, we could always add it. Again, it's always easier to add things than remove them when it comes to entitlements and things like that. So if that would help the board and help us move forward, I would definitely recommend that staff is comfortable at this point, moving forward without that segment of 53rd.
All right, I'm next on the board, and, you know, I've got to disagree with some of the things I've heard here today. Number one, we don't have a full board today, and these are very serious issues for this county as a whole. So, you know, Ms. Shank, I thought you said December the 20th.
I'm
I was
sorry.
very
I meant-
excited about that because I wanted a full board and we'd have new commissioners. And as Commissioner Smith said earlier, actually, we will be having a new commissioner come on in that area, so I was totally excited about hearing, maybe bringing this back in December. So, it seems like we're running back and forth just being political up here as, oh, well, 1 minute we like this, the next minute we don't. But the bottom line is, I think we should have a full board with new commissioners to decide this. However, that's just me. Commissioner Whitmore.
And, I'm really disappointed, because to me, I have to say, I am, John Chappie's like my brother. We are very good friends. I don't agree at all with what his suggestions are. I agree with Larry. I feel like it's being politically cherry-picked, and I don't like that. But it's going to lose, and I am not going to let these people's hard works die. I'm sorry, and because of political stuff. And I'm very upset that it's come to this, but I'm not going to sit here politically 3-3 and it's a joke. And, seeing everybody's faces here when this may be dying. So I'm actually going to be the big boy here, and I'm going to amend my motion, and I'm going to change it. And again, I don't like it, and I think it's I don't like how it was handled at all. This was a 20 to 30-year plan, and we were supposed to be looking at the future like the people did in '89 when they did our comp plan. And I'm going to change the motion to approve the recommended motion with removing 53rd up until, help me, John, what you just said.
From 75th Street to 36th Street West.
Yes, that'll be my motion.
Second.
As I'm making a comment, I do not like the way, this is not my style, how I work. And again, this was a 20 to 30-year plan. And we can always, if something comes before us in the future, there can be a comp plan amendment in the future when we're all not here. So that's my motion.
And Madam Chair, so the motion Commissioner Whitmore just made pertains to, I move to adopt ordinance number 1607, the Urban Corridors Comp Plan Amendment, with the amendment stated by Commissioner Whitmore.
Yeah.
All right. Commissioner Chappie, is that your second as well?
I did second.
And that calls going on both sides of the aisle to work something out when you don't agree with it.
All right, we have a motion by Commissioner Commissioner Whitmore, second by Commissioner Chappie. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Nay. So it is approved,
I have a
5 to
comment.
1. Go ahead, you're on the board.
Yeah, I thought up until the last couple of minutes, we've had a very good discussion, open.
Not political.
And I appreciate that, because that's what we're here for, is discuss and set policy and move forward for where we are today and where we want to be in the future. But it also goes with understanding where we've been in the past, and that's what the discussion has been about, for the most part. But I am disappointed in the comments from Commissioner Whitmore and Commissioner Bussell to a point that this is politically motivated in any way, shape, or form. I don't think that any of us I haven't done anything. I don't think anybody else has done anything to even insinuate in any way, shape, or form that it is politically motivated. My interests, like Commissioner Whitmore's and Commissioner Bussell's, are, do what we think as elected representatives for the best interest of our community, the community as a whole. That's why throughout this whole discussion, I've had nothing but praise for this plan. From day one, 8 years ago, or 7 years ago, I guess it was, on the 4th floor, when I was first introduced to this idea, the corridors. It's a great opportunity, it's a great plan, and it will move us into the future. Thank you.
All right, Commissioner Smith.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think you clarified. My concern was in my personal opinion, since Commissioner Chappie will not have any further say-so on this issue, was to preserve this here in the best interest of the new person that may fill that seat. Certainly, as staff had mentioned, that we can always add, and I would rather have that commissioner, whoever at that seat, have some kind of discretion, discuss that with his constituents, and don't be in a situation where he inherits something and inherit a problem that Commissioner Chapman has fought and preserved that right for whoever replaces him. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Commissioner DeSabatino.
Yes, I totally agree. I don't think we're making these major decisions based on anything political. I really appreciate you going the extra mile and the compromise at 36, because all along I wanted 34th, didn't want to go to 75th. I didn't think that really pertained to this. So I thank you for supporting that as well.
Commissioner Whitmore.
And what I mean by political, maybe I should clarify myself. We are all politicians up here. That's what I meant. Some can be more aggressive than others. That's what I meant. I did not mean political, but we are politicians and it is political. We all have our different districts that we represent. So that's what I meant. I did not mean anybody's going the back door smoking a cigar doing something. Did not mean that. Sorry about that. So anyway, it's done. Let's move forward.
Commissioner Chappie.
And I appreciate that clarification.
No, man, you know me. I would never do that. I
Well,
don't mean it like that.
I understand that from you, because I've known you so well, and we are close. But when the audience hears certain terms and certain words, it's not always interpreted the way that we mean them. So I really do appreciate that from my friend. So thank you.
Kumbaya. All right, we still need to do something on number 6.
I thought we were,
That was
Right,
only
that was
the
just
first
number
one, that was number
Yes.
5.
I think we're done. Oh, you have to open it up probably.
Well, we did have the public hearing on
Yeah, we
both.
open them together,
So
yeah.
now we're voting on each one separately.
Okay.
We just voted on 5,
You
though,
just
didn't we?
Right, we did.
go over
We
what
only
6
voted
is,
on
just
5.
in a nutshell, so.
Yeah, 6 is the countywide council plan amendments, ordinance 16-23. They do not have a geographic limitation other than they may refer to the urban service area or urban core. But there's no map that delineates it. That was on the other one.
Okay.
It was the page that we went point by point when Commissioner Whitmore asked the question.
Got it.
And Madam Clerk, help me, did I open that for public comment?
We did.
Yes, we
So
opened
much
both
I can't
together.
remember.
Together.
Okay,
Items were open together, so the public comment was open.
okay.
Okay.
So what is the
Motion
pleasure of
to
the board?
approve.
Second.
We have a motion by Commissioner DeSabatino, second by Commissioner Whitmore. All in
So-
favor, say aye.
So,
Wait,
1
wait.
minute, please. I just want
both.
to make sure you read the whole motion. Based upon the evidence presented, comments made at the public hearing, the technical support documents, the action of the planning commission, and finding the request to be consistent with the comprehensive plan and the applicable portions of chapter 163, part 2 Florida statutes, I move to adopt ordinance 16-23.
So moved.
I was going to say, that was your motion, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed, nay. It is approved 6-0. Okay, moving right along. That's my thing. Okay, next is number 7.
Item number 7 is LDCT 1606, ordinance 1631. It's a land development code amendment. The request is to hold a public hearing prior to 5 PM per Florida statute 125664B1.
And Madam Chair, while staff's coming up, basically the statute requires that if you're amending the schedule of permitted uses in a zone district, you have to have 2 public hearings, one of which has to be after 5 PM. The board adopted a resolution waiving this requirement 20 years ago, but I'm not comfortable relying on that. The statute is currently written, appears to require a case-by-case decision, and so that's why the ordinance itself isn't in here, because it hasn't gone to planning commission yet. So just a procedural vote on the time of the hearing.
And Sarah, this says here that the motion requires at least 5 votes to pass?
That's in the statute.
Okay, wow. Interesting. Hi.
Hi, good morning, Rosina Leider.
Hi.
But the staff, I think that the motion is clear that we are, as part of the Land Development Code Text Amendment 1606, we are proposing to allow 2 uses within the PDMU planning district. And by Florida statute, is required 2 that be here by the board. And one of the hearings has to be after 5 o'clock in a weekday. And we are requesting to have the second hearing on November 3rd during the land use meeting.
All right, Rosina, maybe you should just touch base kind of on what this is, just for the public that might be watching this.
The
LDC code amendment.
The LDC code amendment is, staff is proposing to add outdoor storage, principal use, and recreational vehicle parks and subdivisions, like allow use within the PDMU, future land use category. There are other minor change that is related to the table for a special approval, but I says with the Florida statute, it's required that anything that is related to permitted uses has to be here twice.
All right. I don't have any commissioners on the board, so we'll go to public comment. Anyone like to come forward? Not seeing anyone. All right, we'll close public comment. What's the pleasure of the board?
Move the recommended motion.
Second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Whitmore, a second by Commissioner Smith. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. It is approved 6-0.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, people, it's 11:15. We're doing well. At this point, we'll go down to commissioner comment. Commissioner Whitmore, if you'd like to start.
Oh, I've said enough.
All right. Commissioner DeSabatino.
No.
Commissioner Chappie.
Nope.
Save to the next meeting.
Commissioner Bussell?
No.
All right, I don't have anything either, so this meeting is adjourned.